Hi, my name's Tom Megan. I'm responsible for international students at our school. The following is an interview with one of our former pupils to explain to parents of new students how we would care for your child if you choose to join our school. It's a long interview, which we've tried to separate into 6 different parts that will hopefully give you a better understanding of the care and support and systems we have in place to take care of your child.
So in terms of charity work, what opportunities would you offer a student that enrolled in this school? Where would you take them? What experiences would they gain?
Okay. It's actually my favorite part of the job. I mean, I've been going to Africa for going on 7 years now. And when I first went, I decided this is something that we're going to do once a year. Okay. Now, Africa's a big place. It's a big continent. And a lot of Chinese parents are absolutely fine with it. And some are very, very worried about safety. A lot of our British students are worried about safety as well in Africa. Now, we choose a number of countries that are very favorable to tourism. They have an established tourist route. And one of them, for example, is a former British colony. Everyone speaks English. And it's actually only a 6-hour flight direct. It's not too bad at all. These countries have very good relations with China, and they're very happy to have Chinese students come and help them out. So a lot of people told me that there's no way we're going to get international students to come with us on these tours to Africa, but nearly every year, now I'm sorry to say, but every year, 1 or 2 decide, I'm not going, I'm a bit nervous, it's a bit dangerous, and then they regret it. The best part of my job is taking them to places like Gambia and Cape Verde and working on the charity projects we do there, and watching their eyes light up. It's magical, and you have to be, it sounds a bit corny, but you have to be there to fully appreciate it. Okay, basically it's 2 African countries that we choose. Okay, the first one is the Gambia, which is a country in West Africa. It's pretty poor. It's quite corrupt. There's a huge gap between rich and poor. The infrastructure isn't great. It's very important to take students who were born in the year 2000 or 2002 from China who never understood what their parents went through or what their grandparents went through or what China was like in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Taking kids from, let's be frank, our students come from pretty good socio-economic backgrounds. They come from good families, wealthy families. It's important to show them what real poverty is. Okay? It's important to show them this is how most people in the world live, under $2 a day. I think it's a very, very important thing for young people to see. And after they've done their placement in Africa, many of them say to me that a lot of the problems that they had before in retrospect, kind of seem very, very irrelevant. Okay, and I think it's a maturing process for some of them. They all complain about the hotel in the first night, second night, and then they love it, and then they don't want to leave every single time. It's almost exactly the same. Okay, they whinge and they complain at me for the first day, and then they absolutely love it. Now, okay, in Gambia, the project we have normally is refurbishing schools. Okay, so going into villages where the schools have very damaged blackboards or whiteboards, and then we bring whiteboards from the UK and we fix up the classrooms. Then they teach them Chinese, they teach them about China, they teach them about the UK. And they interact with African students of the same age, and that also reminds them how lucky they are, because these students would never be able to dream of coming to the UK to study. It's a maturing process, as I say. The students who are interested in medicine or more scientific or engineering courses, we try where we can in Africa to set them up with even work experience placements or a placement in a hospital or a clinic. We had a student from Zhuhai about 3 years ago called Liu Shuwei. And Shuwei was applying for medicine, and she spent the entire week delivering babies. Okay? Now, appreciate that many medical students in the UK, or students aiming for medicine, can't get that kind of experience in the UK. It's practically impossible. But in Africa, it's doable. So we set her up with a placement in an African clinic for a week, and she was delivering babies. A 16-year-old girl delivering babies. She was administering malaria tests. Okay, so she was even taking blood. I mean, again, 16 years old doing these things. In the UK, the best you can hope for is to sit in a corner and watch a doctor, watch a GP. Very limited work experience, but in Africa, you can do these things. Okay, in Cape Verde, the project is conservation. Okay, so particularly plastic pollution conservation. So we clean beaches. There are machines that clean the plastic particles from the beaches, and then literally rubbish from all over the world that's hitting the island of Cape Verde. Okay, it's also damaging the habitats of these giant turtles. So we spend the entire week working with a charity that is dedicated to one, protecting the habitat of these turtles, and two, releasing more turtles into the wild. So it's a remarkable experience. We are in the middle of nowhere, like literally in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, on this tiny cluster of islands. We're working at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so we let them sleep most of the day, and this particular work experience happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, releasing turtles. The only light is the stars and the moon, and amazingly, your eyes become accustomed to it. So we're working on a beach in the middle of the night, releasing baby turtles into the ocean. And the hope is that a giant turtle would come in and lay her eggs as well. And some of our groups have been lucky enough to see that. Okay, so this is going on the 5th year that we've taken Chinese students to Africa. And I'm not stopping. We're going to do Cape Verde again this October during the many holidays that we have. Now, to put it into perspective, if you want to be cruel about many boarding schools or international schools in the UK, typically during a half-term holiday or Easter holiday, they have to leave the school and go stay with homestay. Okay? Or they during Easter, they have to leave the school and fly back to China. So many students would fly back to China 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times a year. We have many holidays in the UK. From speaking to Chinese parents, 我每个家长我都有他们的微信，我有每个家长的微信，我随时可以和我们任何的家长联系了。我知道他们从别的学校转学到我们这儿，说他们很不满意, not very happy that they have to leave school all the time. And sometimes it's 5 or 6 weeks and then get out. But I see these small holidays as an opportunity. This is when we do our work experience or our charity work. So the October half term, we would do a trip to Africa. February half term, we would do company tours. May half term, we try and do internships. Okay, that's how we fill the time as well.
So as you mentioned, younger generations of Chinese students don't or have less knowledge about the history of China and what their grandparents or parents went through.
I think they know it. They were told what it's like.
But they haven't experienced it.
They never experienced it, and they can't really visualize it. I mean, bear in mind, I was a student in China in the year 2002. And I've seen China change radically over the course of many of our students' lives. I mean, Beijing especially, is a very, very different place. It's very comfortable to live there now. You've got Wi-Fi and Starbucks, and it's a modern metropolis. It's a wonderful place to live. It was very, very different 20 years ago. You can't see it unless you've lived in it. Now, the reason I say that, it's not necessarily a problem that they didn't live through what their parents lived
absolutely
through.
Not.
Not necessarily an issue in and of itself, except that they've lost some drive. A lot of our students have, they understand, I've got to study, I've got to get into university, but there's no real kind of drive to succeed. 20 years ago, when I dealt with Chinese students, they felt guilty about spending their parents' money. They used to come for 1 year, because that's all they could afford. Remember the pound was 15 RMB to a pound 20 years ago, the UK was very, very expensive. Okay, to come to Britain for 1 year cost 30,000 RMB, that's 300,000 RMB just for the fees. That was out of the question for most families. They could afford 1 year to come and do a master's here. The kid felt guilty. We had students who, sold a house to get the kid to England. I mean, they were stressed about money. They felt a sense of urgency to be very successful. Some of our students, our younger ones, have lost that, in all honesty. It's not an attack on them. It's a natural process of China becoming a very wealthy country. Okay, so I wanted, through Africa and through the experience of Africa, to get them to have that drive again, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense.
You can't replicate it, but you can give them a sense of urgency. I am very lucky, but I want to be more successful. Not just study, but also in terms of career.